Hey, hey, hey. Happy Thursday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief, and even more shockingly enough, all month long, we are being sponsored by our friends over at Roll for Combat and their Elemental Storm Battlezoo Bestiary Kickstarter, which I'll talk about in a little more depth in a few moments. So welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Thursday, September 19th, 2024. This is live stream 1102. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, super casual, just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and then I will usually pontificate about our hobby. And tonight, it's going to be another edition of Role-Playing Story Time. That's right, I'm going to pick up the tale I was sharing last week. This is kind of the middle episode, I guess, and then I will wrap it up next week. In fact, I think what we'll probably end up doing is probably combine the role-playing story time finale with the September AMA. Kind of put it together in one video a week from today, because that'll be the last live stream of September. So very cool. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Lastly, this is a live show, so if you are watching live, there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least 10 minutes before you can take part in chat. Yet another way I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you check both those boxes, you want to say howdy, maybe get a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my best to respond. So first out the gate tonight is Semper Buffo, Gleamone RX, Willona's Cave. I believe that's what we've got in chat right now. Those are the folks who are hanging out. I'm going to take a guess. Probably be kind of quiet today. It's Thursday night football. And, this isn't like a super exciting topic or anything like that. I'm not, the title of this episode isn't why Dungeons and Dragons sucks balls or anything like that. So that usually brings in live viewers. I would never title a video that. Mike is also with us in chat. I'll take a guess that the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D might be lurking in the shadows tonight. She might be our only chat moderator on site at the moment. I don't know. So Gleamone RX is pointing out that I'm assembling a Warhammer Fantasy virtual tabletop session in a few weeks. I don't know if that's going to go through. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. That's why I haven't been talking about it. There's so much going on. I don't know if I've got the available time to invest into that. We'll find out. I have yet to decide exactly what I want to do with that. Part of the reason is because Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay is pretty well done in Foundry, which is what I would use, but their maps are not good. Their actual virtual tabletop maps are not good at all. And if I'm going to use Foundry and I'm going to do a virtual tabletop, I want the lighting. I want all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what's going on. So, Wallona's Cave asks, well, what's the reasons? Well, now I just shared that with you. I don't know if I have enough free time to invest in making it really shine for Foundry. That's kind of the thing. But as far as the implementation of WIFRIP, it's actually pretty well done. It really is. All right. Anyway, as I mentioned, all throughout this month and into next, the fine folks over at Roll for Combat are sponsoring the Dispatch. That's correct. And of course, they are in the midst of a very successful Kickstarter for their Battle Zoo Bestiary Elemental Storm, which actually delivers a fresh and exciting experience and keeps players guessing with over 170 new elemental monsters that channel the power of 20 unique elements, including classics like air, earth, fire, and water, as well as new elements like music, space, and time. Your players will never know what's coming. Now, there is a short Kickstarter video from Roll for Combat. I'm going to share that with you right now.
Listen up, Dungeon Masters. Your players are falling asleep at the table. What? Your wizard is going to use catapult to throw rocks at a monster again? How about instead of that, the wizard covers their body in rocks and hurls themselves? Now you're thinking like a badass using Battle Zoo Bestiary Elemental Storm. Filled with over 150 innovative elemental monsters, new elemental spells, and the monster parts system, allowing you to craft weapons, armor, and magic items from the creatures you slay, infusing elemental magic into them with 20 unique elements. Sure, there's classics like air, earth, fire, and water, but there's even weirder elements like music, space, and time. Doctor Who, Doctor You.
Wait, I'm a player, not a dungeon master. Why should I give a shit?
Well, Yahtzee, how about a brand new character archetype, the Monster Hunter? Climb on creatures, target specific body parts, and weaken them. Or just grab a small monster and use their attacks against the big one.
Ooh, you sold me at big ones.
Best of all, this archetype can fit along any class. Fighter Monster Hunter? Duh. Monk Monster Hunter? Sure. Wizard Monster Hunter? Well, it'll set the difficulty up, but go right ahead. Elemental Storm is filled with over 250 pages packed with stunning illustrations, detailed rules on the monster parts system, and so much more for your Pathfinder 2e and D&D 5th edition games. Click on the link below or head on over to kickstarter.rollforcombat.com to secure your copy of Battle Zoo Bestiary Elemental Storm today, and turn your table from slow and crunchy to fast and furious.
The Elemental Storm Kickstarter for Battle Zoo Bestiary, or at least I should say that volume of Battle Zoo Bestiary, blew the doors off of Kickstarter for its funding goal within about the first 10 minutes. You can reserve a copy of the hardcover in the flavor of your choice, because you can choose 5e Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder 2nd Edition. You can grab those hardcovers for a pledge of $60. Or if you want to just score the PDF in the flavor of your choice, you can do so for a $30 pledge through October 8th. Expected delivery is next spring. Yes. Very nice. Very nice. Ooh. Steven from Roll for Combat's not hanging out in chat. Maybe I could crack this open and share the... I better not. I better not. I've been sworn to secrecy. I'm only supposed to share the cover of the book. That's it. Russell Higgins is with us in chat. Oh, look at that. There you go. Stephen from Roll for Combat says, yeah, they're here. He's watching me. Sometimes it feels like Somebody's watching me. I was never a fan of that song. I was like, Chris Lundgren's also with us with his bird buddy. Yes, his cockatiel buddy is hanging out. And W Forge is with us. I don't know if I just said hello to W Forge or not, so I'll just say it again. Chris Burkhart is also with us in chat. And Miss Sarah D is lurking in the shadows to keep everybody in line with her glittery banhammer. So, yes, Stephen also points out the mimic is watching me. Yes, it is right over my shoulder here. Yes, compliments of Roll for Combat. They sent me the mimic that that Mike says, we won't look if you crack the book. We all saw what happened in Indiana Jones. The arc opening. Don't look, Miriam. Very nice. Very, very nice. So I will point out that Gleam1 RX gave kind of I would say that emoji is a disgruntled look. That's what I usually, translate that emoji for, as far as my probably not doing WIFRIP virtual tabletop. Okay, so here's the thing that I am bouncing around, but it's not going to be done until November. So supposedly, the fine folks over at Troll Lord Games are in the midst of working on a Foundry edition of Castles and Crusades. So I thought, well, what I can do, see now this was going to be a surprise, but now it won't be. So what I was thinking of doing is holding off on running anything as far as a VTT until that's done, until that's ready. I think there's already sort of a third-party module, which, funny enough, many of the Foundry virtual tabletop core games are from third parties. They're not actually from the publishers themselves. And I was thinking of maybe using that and running like an old D&D module, like an old D&D campaign, sort of, and just, modernize it. Because the thing is, then I can kind of bust out any old virtual tabletop maps that I want, right? And there are a lot of virtual tabletop maps out there that are already set up with, lighting and stuff like that. So there is that. All righty. Anywho, Dice Tales is with us. Good to see you. Welcome aboard. And I think I've said hello to everybody in chat right now. So let's jump on into the news, because the print edition of the Pirate Borg role-playing adventure Buried in the Bahamas is available in print and PDF from Limithron and Exalted Funeral. Here's the skinny. Buried in the Bahamas is an introductory adventure for Pirate Borg in the dark Caribbean campaign setting. It was designed with the first-time players and new game masters in mind, and while it starts with a predetermined introduction, it quickly transitions to a sandbox-style adventure where you and your players will make your own decisions on how the adventure will unfold. It's optimized for one-shots, convention play, and for use as the first session in a long-term campaign. Extra notes in the margins provide Game Master suggestions and tips. Explore 3 islands, cross swords with undead skeletons, and search for treasure in the Cave of 7 Skulls. This adventure is a perfect start to a career on the high seas, and it was partially written and play-tested in the Bahamas. Inside the adventure, you'll also find a double-sided pull-out treasure/battle map, 30 things one might find buried in the Bahamas drop table, recruiter for instantly generating NPC crew, as well as a Game Master resource list. The 24-page zine carries an MSRP of $24, or you can grab just the PDF alone over at Drive-Thru RPG for $7.99. You may recall, we just talked about the big Pirate Board Kickstarter that's going on right now, which has a trio of supplements, a starter set for Pirate Borg, and it's, gosh, what was it? First 10 hours or so, it had already hit $250,000 in funding. So Luke from Limithron had reached out to me because they had taken my 10 out of 10 blurb from my review and put it on the Kickstarter. And he's sending along everything that's currently in print for Pirate Borg outside of the core rulebook. So we'll be taking a look at this in the not too distant future. Very, very nice. Very, very cool. So I did want to share the news piece that this adventure is available in print. It had only been available as PDF, and it's fairly recently that this was made available as a physical zine that you can order from Exalted Funeral. Very nice. Mike says that can't wait for the Somali Pirates expansion. Jeez. Ouch. Dice Tales said, never been that interested in pirate games. This one is pretty good. This is actually a really good pirate game. Because, I mean, it's also, you know, horror and stuff like that, too. Although you could really, honestly, run Pirate Borg as a straight-up pirate game. I don't see, needing to have the horror aspect of it. Anyway, they said if they could write off a trip to the Bahamas for research, well, then they're suddenly fascinated by pirate games. Very nice. Very cool. All right, on to our next news piece. And yes, we are actually going to talk about 2 Exalted Funeral news pieces. I know, it's kind of a shocker. I normally don't do back-to-back or do a twofer for a publisher. But I am going to talk a little bit about Exalted Funeral after we finish up the news. But there is a new cosmic fantasy role-playing game and toolkit, which is available in print from Huffa and Exalted Funeral. And here's what I know on Between the Skies. Rules minimalist, fiction maximalist. Role-playing across wondrous worlds. Travel the spheres and planes with a trove of resources to draw from, and a guide to help you play with almost nothing between your game and your imagination. What is Between the Skies? Between the Skies is a tabletop role-playing game of cosmic fantasy, travel, and exploration. Between the Skies is also a collection of toys and tools for any game. It is everything you need for wild flights of shared imagination. Create new worlds, characters both strange and strangely familiar, and all manner of creatures, objects, and happenings. In this book, you'll find a complete resource-rich game with hundreds of tables, in-depth advice, and flexible procedures that you can use and remake however you desire. Between the Skies Collected Edition features over 200 tables and dozens of procedures for creating characters, creatures, worlds, factions, events, adventures, gods, demons, and much more. All material from Between the Skies volumes 1 through 3, revised, edited, and redesigned, plus over 100 pages of new adventures, tables, procedures, and art. There's life path character generation and 2 new methods of quick spark character generation. There's solo and collaborative play procedures. Planes, spheres, and mycelium matrices created by Wendy Yu, Aiko, Max Cantor, and Sophia Ramos. New ways to play and approach the weirdness of your worlds, including playing as people from our own world who find themselves between the skies. Playtime a concise rule set flexible enough to be used in any sphere or plane, advice and resources for starting your game, handling travel, and conducting exciting conflicts, as well as an extensive updated bibliography to guide you to even more worlds. This 406-page A5 hardcover with PDF carries an MSRP of $50 over at Exalted Funeral. It is not available only as a PDF as of right now. So just so you know. But this looks pretty interesting. And even though it is a role-playing game in itself, it is also a serious toolbox for game masters out there as far as space fantasy or cosmic fantasy. So look pretty interesting, like the artwork as well. So there is that. Gleeman RX says that they just checked and the Pirate Board Kickstarter is at $460,000. Also points out that as an A5 400 plus page hardcover, that's a chunky little book. Yes, it is. On the next news piece, there's a Western role-playing game Kickstarter, which caught my eye. It's from newcomers Effekt Publishing, and I've got the scoop on Tales of the Old West. Life is hard, life is short, and life don't owe you a goddamn thing. But you are extraordinary. In this land of raw opportunity, nothing can limit what you can become. Not race, nor gender, nor how few dollars you have in your pocket. It don't matter where you come from or what you've done before. You just make yourself in the West, and the West makes you. Tales of the Old West is the tabletop role-playing game of gritty, hard-hitting action and adventure set in a historical recreation of the 1870s American West, a world where dangers you face lurk in the hearts of other folk or from the very land beneath your feet. It uses Free League Publishing's award-winning Year Zero engine adapted to fit the Western theme. Let's take you back to the Old West in the year 1873. The game is a historical recreation of the way the Wild West was back in the day. Blessed by opportunity, cursed by hardship, and riven with conflict and struggle, life on the frontier is challenging, and the rules reflect that reality. It's easy to get hurt, and getting hurt is bad. In fact, everything can go south pretty damn fast. So, partner, if you're going to draw your gun, you better be ready for the consequences. The West makes you. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, or what you did before. In the American West, you can become whoever you want to be. The rules encourage players to explore the lives of any and every person who once lived in the Old West without casting those characters into old and worn stereotypes. The Tales of the Old West core rulebook will be released with approximately 200 pages, U.S. letter format, hardcover, printed by Standard Lithuania. Within, you're going to find all the rules you need to create your character and take them out into the Old West, including 6 archetypes: gentle folk, grifter, homesteader, tracker, ranch hand, and trader. Details of your 16 abilities and more than 50 talents, each with a basic and advanced level of expertise. The rules on social conflict, where the strength of your personality or your gift of gab will win the day. And rules for when you can't talk your way out of trouble for fighting and ranged combat. There are over 25 individual weapons, each with the advantages and disadvantages of the weapons of the day. There's an innovative critical injury and called shot, called blow mechanic, as well as a new take on mishaps called trouble. The means to build your hometown into the shiny place on the hill you want it to be, and the rules for the business outfit you want to run there. There's even 8 different breeds of horse, and the means to train your perfect steed and the other Old West wildlife you might want to avoid. There's even an introductory adventure. Patience is a virtue. Now, there is a 2-minute Kickstarter video that talks about Tales of the Old West. So let's take a peek.
Welcome, drowned souls.
Or maybe not. Damn it. Hang on. I thought I had it all set up. All right. Take a look at Pirate Borg for a couple of moments while I...
Welcome, drowned souls and shipwrecked mariners, to the locker. The lost meander here. The chains that bound them to the corporeal world rust and crumble as they sink.
Hello, I'm Doc Matthew Tyler Jones,
And I'm Dave Appaloosa Seamar.
and we are the creators of the Tales of the Old West role-playing game, a game that you can back right now, right here on Kickstarter.
Indeed. We are huge fans of Free League Publishing's Year Zero engine, and we have used that rule system in Tales of the Old West.
We're also huge fans of the stories, the mythology of the Old West. So if you enjoy books like Lonesome Dove, TV shows like
Deadwood,
thank you,
the English.
The English, or films like 310 to Yuma and Tombstone, then we think you'd love this game, which not only gives you the opportunity to recreate stories like those, but also to create new stories, whole campaigns based around your characters.
This game is gritty, and it's based on history. There are no supernatural elements. It's just you and your strength and your skill and your faith against the West.
And against the evil in the hearts of other folk. But whoever you are, whatever your background, be you European or Nuevos Mexicanos or Native American, wherever you've come from, you are extraordinary, and you can build the West just as much as it builds you.
So, come and back this game. We love it, we think we're onto something, and we hope that you'll love it too.
The Kickstarter for Tales of the Old West is over 200% funded. You can reserve a copy of the hardcover with PDF for a pledge of approximately $53, or just grab the PDF alone for a pledge of approximately $27 through October 3rd. Expected delivery, both physical and digital, is next May. I gotta say, I am intrigued, and I can see some folks in chat are also intrigued. Tessie Trekkie is with us, as is Tony Urquides and Maddie C. joining us in chat. Tony Urquides says, pretty cool. I'm a sucker for Westerns. Unfortunately for my pocketbook. Gleeman RX also points out that Effekt Publishing is based in the UK. So this is a British cowboy Western. I'm kind of curious about that a little bit too. But, you know, if they're deep into their history, it doesn't really matter if they're over in the UK or if they're, you know, living in Arizona. So there is that. Maddie C says they find this one so interesting. Western role-playing game that's actually about life in the West without it being Weird West. No monsters or supernatural, etc. Just wish it wasn't so expensive. Certainly understand that. Sean O'Donnell's with us in chat pointing out, well, they filmed plenty of Westerns in Italy. That's right. They certainly did. We talked about spaghetti Westerns a few times over the years on the live show. So I do want to point out, and I don't think it's mentioned on the Kickstarter page, but there's a quick start for this. It's over on Drive-Thru RPG. I don't know if it's pay what you want or free. I didn't go take a peek at it. And the cover of it is different, but it is Tales of the Old West, and it is from Effekt Publishing. If you're curious about this, I would recommend checking that out. And we'll talk a little bit about the Old West after I wrap up the news tonight, because I know gamers out there are intrigued by a historical Old West role-playing game. We'll talk a little bit about that in just a few moments. But like I said, this caught my eye. This looks pretty cool. And it is built on the Year Zero engine. And the two designers have actually done work on Alien, and I think there was another Free League Publishing game that they've actually worked on. So they are familiar with the system. So kind of cool. Kind of cool. Chris Burkhart says they're in on this one. Wonder how it measures up to Boot Hill. You know, first edition Boot Hill, there wasn't really much to it. And the funny thing is, I've never had an opportunity to actually see the third edition of Boot Hill, which I understand was kind of fleshed out quite a bit. Gleeman RX says they found the quick start, grabbed it. It's free. So they're going to check it out. The age of the internet is amazing. Isn't it? We're going to chat about that too. That's something we're going to talk a little bit about when I get into story time. On the next news piece, there is a fresh bundle of holding which has arrived, and it features a cornucopia of releases for the Melsonian Arts Council role-playing game Troika. Here's the deets on the deal. Adventure. This new Troika 2024 bundle is the third offer that gathers recent acid fantasy adventures for the Troika tabletop fantasy role-playing game from Melsonian Arts Council. You are a wizarding nautiloid, cryptozoologist, venomist, misstep monastic, octopod headfoot, Karenite gilder, or maybe a washed-up backsash, dimension hopping in your golden barge among the crystal spheres strung like pearls across the humpbacked sky. The simple Troika rules, inspired by the 1980s fighting fantasy game books, lets beginners and jaded role players alike go wild in crazed cross-planar pursuits. Trip the light fantastic with this new assortment of visionary adventures fueled by hallucinatory creativity. For just $9.95, you'll get all 4 titles in the starter collection, which have a retail value of $50, as DRM-free PDFs, including the complete Troika Numinous Edition core rulebook, which has appeared in past Troika offers on Bundle of Holding, along with the third-party source books Swan Castle from Hex Games, The Forested Crossroads at the Multiversal Junction of 100 Different Worlds, Bridgetown from Technical Grimoire Games. Connect your campaign worlds with this endless crowded bridge and take time to make a tasty stew. As well as Goblin Mail from Evelyn Moreau, a deep dive into the disorganized multiversal postal system run by goblins. Can you retrieve your package? And if you pay more than the current threshold price, or at least the threshold price earlier this afternoon of $19.97, you'll level up and also get the entire bonus collection with 6 more games and supplements from Melsonian Arts Council, which is worth an additional $40, including the standalone Troika-based superhero role-playing game, Longshot City, as well as these adventure source books, Academies of the Arcane, The Big Squirm, The Hand of God, Slate and Chalcedony, no clue what the hell that word is, and, well, Gravik's Warehouse. These savings will run through October 7th. So if you're a fan of Troika and you have not picked up these adventures, these supplements, gotta say, jump on board. Grab them for pretty cheap. And of course, If you don't have Troika and you are interested, you can pick this up too because you get the core book along with everything. Very nice. Very nice. Chalcedony says, Geraldine, who's joined us in chat. Thank you very much. Yeah, I you know how he butchered the English language. And of course, I have absolutely no idea what that word actually means. So there you go. Hey, I'm sharing my ignorance with you right here live on YouTube. There you go. Zerax1 is joining us in chat as well. Final news piece, there is a new mission for Achtung Cthulhu 2D20, which has landed from Modiphius Entertainment. And here's what I know about Operation Oberon. Triad Trouble in Shanghai. Shanghai, China. January of... What the hell's going on with this stupid... Oh, this mouse. I think this mouse is starting to crap out. Shanghai, China, January 1943. The city is in the tight grip of the Imperial Japanese Army. While high society revelers enjoy the delights of the Paris of the East, Black Sun secretly loot the occult treasures of the Pacific under the nose of the Japanese occupiers. Section M learns that the Germans have a secret way of smuggling these treasures out, codenamed Oberon, and are using it to systematically steal the treasures of Southeast Asia. The agents are sent to Shanghai to investigate and interdict the Black Sun operation. But brute force will be of little use initially, and espionage and deception will be the fore. The agents have a lead and must infiltrate the Wagnerian, a Shanghai nightclub, the notorious Badlands, where Black Sun operatives have been spotted. The only problem is the Wagnerian is home to the notorious Feilong Triad and an organization known as the Three-Headed Dragon Society. Could these triads be in league with the cult? Following the trail into the heart of the city leads them into many weird adventures, underground temples, strange occult practices, and even a street war between the Feilong Triad and the Somchun rivals. Once they discover Oberon's true nature, what can they do to shut down this ingenious smuggling operation? And will they survive when confronted by a powerful ancient sorcerer and a horror from night's blackest depths? Find out in Operation Oberon, a 37-page adventure for 4 to 6 experienced agents in both standard and printer-friendly formats. Experience a mix of espionage, investigation, and mythos-inspired horror. Explore exciting, authentic locations in the Paris of the East, battle triads, sorcery, and a horror from beyond. It also features maps to enhance the playing experience for both players and GMs with a free digital map pack. Do want to point out, it does require the Achtung Cthulhu 2D20 core books in order to run. The 37-page PDF with the map pack can be had over at Drive-Thru RPG for $7.50. Always cool to see new Achtung Cthulhu adventures pop up. And I have to say, the fine folks over at Modiphius Entertainment sent me the PDF to take a peek at. There's a little bit more art in this than we tend to see in these PDF-only adventures. I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh, cool. Very nice. Very nice. All righty. That is it for the news tonight. And, of course, I was just talking about Drive-Thru RPG. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit Drive-Thru RPG, Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banners. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. All those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. If you like this video, if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Wonderful. And there are some of you out there who stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang and make not small donations, such as our good friend of the show, the Madman and Agile Monk, Joshua Edwards, Kevin King. Those are the most recent not small donators. I guess that does make sense saying that. Regardless, I really do appreciate any of you out there helping to support the Gaming Gang by using our banner ads and or stopping by paypal.me/thegaminggang. Big tip of the cap to everybody. Thank you kindly. So, a couple of things. Number one, I had mentioned there was it wasn't necessarily a reason why there were 2 news pieces from Exalted Funeral. For one, Luke from Limithron was kind enough to email me and say, hey, Jeff, I want to send you all this stuff. And you can get the Pirate Board it's not third-party stuff. It's the Limithron stuff from Exalted Funeral. So it's not available from Free League Publishing, which is where Pirate Board originates from. So there was that. And then there was also the Between the Skies, which I had taken a peek at. And I thought, oh, hey, that looks kind of cool. That looks really interesting. So I figured, share the news piece. So I already had all this news done yesterday. I try to do my news portion the day before I do the show, because you never know what's going to come up around here, right? It's like there are times where I'm turning on the lights and booting up the old desktop computer down here in the Duct Tape Studios 5 to 10 minutes before the stream even starts. So I try to have things, good to go, ready to go. So anyway, today I get an email from Exalted Funeral. Now, I had reached out to Exalted Funeral year and a half ago, maybe. And there was a contact that I was given to try to touch base, because I was curious about maybe doing some reviews of stuff, because they've got interesting releases. Yeah, they're pretty heavy into the Mirkberg stuff and some of the art punk stuff, which really isn't my bag of tricks. But they also do a lot of like Old School Essentials. They are the official distributor of Old School Essentials here in the United States and Canada, I do believe. So there's that. There's a lot of cool stuff that they release. So anyway, so this other person reaches out to me from Exalted Funeral, and they said, hey, we want to get on board with the Gaming Gang. And the new contact I've got, had watched the episode where I talked about my favorite publishers and said, hey, we want Exalted Funeral to end up on that list. I'm like, hey, that's cool with me. So there is a box of goodies that is, I think it's already shipped. It may have just shipped today, or it's scheduled to ship out. And it's just loaded down with stuff. So we are going to get an opportunity to take a look at, what is it? Silver Outlaw Raiders? Isn't that what it's called? It was up for some Emmy Awards. So there's that. The second edition of Ultraviolet Grasslands, a couple of compendiums of Old School Essentials adventures from Necrotic Gnome. So they're not third party. I think there's 2 volumes. Although we have reviewed some of those adventures already. I think like first 2 that came out. What is it? The Incandescent Grotto, I think, is one of them. But I was like, man, this is awesome. Very cool. And I was like, sweet. So we're going to get to take a peek at some cool stuff from Exalted Funeral. And there you go. Outcast Silver Raiders. Thank you, W Forge. So we're going to get to take a peek at this stuff. And a lot of it kind of skews old school. So going to fit right on in to our old school October. So very nice. Other thing I wanted to mention, we were talking about the Tales of the Old West Kickstarter. I now have a topic for next Tuesday's show, and it is going to be how to bring the Old West to life at your game table, because there are certain aspects, in my opinion, if you are looking to run a Western role-playing game that is historical, and it's not going to be like Deadlands or Haunted West, which both of those are great, don't get me wrong. And the reality is you could run those as straight Western role-playing games. Just ignore the odd supernatural aspects of them. But there are certain things about the American West that you must utilize if you are going to be running an Old West themed role-playing game. We're going to talk about that. So it was kind of interesting because I feel very strongly about this because, yes, I happen to be a big history buff, and the American West is one genre that I am pretty familiar with. In fact, got to be honest, I don't know if you've seen the, it's what is it, 6 parts, if I remember right? The documentary series about Wyatt Earp on Netflix. It's the voiceover, the narration is Ed Harris. Does a pretty good job. Got some quibbles with that, though. It was sort of like, okay, you do realize most of the good things about Wyatt Earp were manufactured. I'm not saying he was a complete villain. But strangely enough, and I'll get off this topic in just a second, strangely enough, the American West, you could go from being an outlaw to a lawman to back to being an outlaw in the blink of an eye. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Dan Webb is with us in chat, popping on in. Welcome aboard. Looks like we've got a pretty good chat rocking and rolling. We got some of our regulars hanging out, some folks that don't pop into chat all too often, might have a newcomer or two. So very nice, very cool. All righty, so tonight it's going to be role-playing game story time again. I'm going to pick up the tale that I was telling last week, continue talking about that, and just kind of share what was going on. Kind of give you a feel for how my mind works when I'm running a role-playing game, even though we're going to be talking about 40 plus years ago. My approach to running role-playing games kind of remains sort of the same, for good or bad, I guess. Anyway, so that's going to be our topic tonight. We're going to get on into that in just a few moments. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
It's Woolworth's Stereo Spectacular 71, a fantastic once-a-year sale of albums, LPs, tapes, everything in stereo, unbelievably low priced. Woolworth's Stereo Spectacular has top stereo LPs, the biggest hits just off the charts for only $1.57. Famous labels, favorite stars, Herb Alpert, Petula Clark, The Association, Canned Heat, many more for only $1.57. And another fabulous group of LPs on sale for just 87 cents. Jack Jones, The Beach Boys, Guess Who, and more. And for children, the original cast album of Sesame Street, only 87 cents. Woolworth Stereo Spectacular has big savings on 8-track stereo cartridges. Dionne Warwick, Lou Rawls, Glenn Campbell, Blind Faith, many more for only $2.99. Supplies are limited, so hurry over and save during Woolworth Stereo Spectacular 71.
Thank you for shopping, Woolworth. It's the fun place to shop.
Wilkins Coffee is on the ball.
Not to me, it isn't.
Either get on the ball with Wilkins or get out of the way.
You need a lift? Are you waiting for that big break? How about some new kicks? You'll get them all from the wildest bunch of far-out superheroes who ever came your way. Super Stooges versus the Wonder Women. Make way for the Wonder Women, meanest mamas of them all. When they go on a rampage, nobody can stop them. Nobody but the Super Stooges.
Raid this valley again, and none of you will leave it alive.
Dharma, the immortal magician. Chang, the Chinese chopper. And Wu, the Black Samson. See them flip out with their superhuman feet. They're incredible.
Honorable partners, I think the time has come for us to get the hell out of here.
They're invincible.
Whoa, you're the heavy. If you manage to fly, then it'll be easy for me.
They're impossible.
If we stick together, there's no force in the world capable of beating.
That's the secret weapon of the Wonder Women that has the Super Stooges in deep trouble. It's a panorama of pandemonium as the Super Stooges fight back. See the barrage of the polar ball. See the blitzkrieg by firebombs. See the terrifying attack of the super tanks.
Full speed ahead!
They're diesel-powered.
Steer to your right! I can't steer to the right! I got a guy with a limp on the left!
Move over, Hercules. Move over, Superman. Move over, Captain Marvel. The wildest bunch of superheroes you ever met are coming to your rescue. Don't miss the super amazing, super astounding Super Stooges versus the Wonder Women.
What the hell were we just watching? Crazy. Just crazy. That is not a film that I remember as a kid. No, not at all. It's like, Death Race 2000, Cannonball, sharing those kind of grindhouse trailers. Yeah, I remember those movies. That I have no idea. Although I have to ask, how many of you out there just started laughing your asses off when the ancient tanks appeared? I was like, zoinks. I'm going to take a wild stab that there were probably a lot of topless women in that movie. I just have a feeling. Gluent RX says, Woolworth. Now there's a store name you don't hear too often these days. There is actually, well, as of about 3 years ago, I don't know if it's still around, there was still a Woolworth in California that had a lunch counter that was still operated. It was operated by a third party, but I was like, wow, really? It's like that brings back memories of being a little kid going to Woolworth with my mom, and they had wooden floors. I remember that. And I remember going to the lunch counter, and for some reason, my mom would order me an egg salad sandwich, and I hated the egg salad from Woolworth. I don't know. So, Wilkins, Coleman RX said, Wilkins, the official copy of tabletop role-playing game Murder Hobos. Yep. There you go. Matiu is with us in chat. Good to see you. So is Alex Villa popping on in. It might be a first-time visit for Alex. I don't recognize the name, so welcome aboard if it is, and if it isn't, welcome back. All right, so tonight we're going to continue our role-playing game story time. And last week I was talking about something that had taken place during my massive Nyarlathotep campaign, which I ran when it came out. It was the summer it came out is when I was running the campaign. And I got to say, I think it took about 6 months to play through. And we would play a lot. We would play multiple times a week because we were high school kids and we were out of school. So it was summer, we had our summer break. So it was not unusual that we could play Call of Cthulhu 4 days out of 7. And when we would sit down to play, we would play for hours. And it was not unusual, 12 or 14 hours of Call of Cthulhu. So sharing that, just pointing that out. So I'm not going to rehash what I was talking about last week, but where we left off is early in Massive Nyarlathotep, and my best friend Elliot, his nephew Paul, and our friend Ed were playing the campaign. So those are my 3 players. And it was funny because we would spend the night at Elliot's house, but a lot of times Ed couldn't spend the night. He had to be home. So there were a lot of things that would go on where we would drop him off, and then Elliot and Paul would convince me to keep running the game when we got back to Elliot's house. And then I would have to come up with ways for, Ed's character to be involved but not be involved, kind of thing. Peaceful Porcupine is with us in chat. Said they're told that Call of Cthulhu is as oversaturated in China as Dungeons and Dragons is here. I have no idea. I have no idea about that. I know it's popular in Japan. As far as China, I got to be honest, I don't know how popular role-playing games are at all in China. So, don't know. I do not know. But as far as oversaturated, I don't think so. I don't think that's really the case. But once again, I can't tell you that for a fact. I just don't get that vibe. Dan Webb said, yeah, there was an Ed in his group back then too. Everybody's got to have an Ed. So anyway, so we're early on in the campaign, and Elliot and Paul and an NPC named Mike McCormick, who I just named after somebody we went to high school with, try to break into this mansion to get these tomes, and things go badly, and it ends up where Paul and Elliot, well, mainly Paul, Elliot really didn't have much to do with it, end up leaving the NPC's lifeless body in the ditch on the side of the road and leave it. So anyway, next time we're playing, it's, the three guys are playing, and there's a point where the investigators go and learn about this cult. And I had them go to, it was the Catskills, because the Catskills are, to my knowledge, some of the closest mountains to New York City. And the first chapter of Mass of Nyarlathotep takes place in New York City. Now, it's pretty interesting because, as Glue and RX had pointed out, the wonder of the internet age, that they went to Drive-Thru RPG, found the quick start for Tales of the Old West, downloaded it for free, and they were just taking a peek at it, right? So back in the day, you had to do homework. You had to do research if you wanted your Call of Cthulhu game to be even a smattering of historic, because we didn't have the internet at our fingertips. So I actually spent a good amount of time popping into libraries, borrowing books, buying books that were about like the 1920s and stuff like that. So Dan Webb says research equals library. Yeah, back in the day. So I remember actually going and trying to find where there were mountains near New York, because I didn't know. I had never been there at that point in my life. So they go, and it's actually part of the campaign. It's part of the adventure itself that there's that the investigators can see this. It's essentially an orgy that's taking place out in the woods with these cultists. And of course, they're cavorting with, other entities. It's not just humans, right? So anyway, they're basically, checking out this another mansion and trying to, learn what's going on, how Call of Cthulhu is, right? They're trying to peel back the layers of the onion. And like I said, this is really early on in the campaign. So Elliot, I remember his character didn't see the ritual that was going on. He was not there. In fact, if I remember right, their car had broken down when they were almost to this place, and they had to hoof it the rest of the way. And Mike says, I can see Jeff now reading a book in the school attic, like Never Ending Story. No, what I used to do, I used to spend a lot of time kicking back we had an enclosed front porch at the house my parents had. And I spent many a spring and summer afternoon out there on this old beat up couch, this old beat up green couch, reading. And I was one of these people, I could go an entire day in the summer and I could read 5 or 6 books. Granted, the books were, 250 pages. But yeah, I could actually literally, and I know how to use that word, read 4 or 5 books. I knocked off like more than half of The Stand in a day. Stephen King's book, which clocks in at, I think it was, that edition was like 900 pages, 1,000 pages, something like that. So Death Angel Shadow is with us in chat asking, there's mountains in New York? Oh, yeah. New York is a huge state. I remember I used to drive all over the country delivering RVs and vehicles and stuff like that. And you would get into New York coming from Indiana, coming from, taking 90. And you would get into New York and it'd be like, I still have 500 miles before I get to New York City. It'd be like, holy shit. So Death Angel Shadow says their only experience in New York was getting stuck in Buffalo. Ooh, man, want to talk about cold in the wintertime? I spent a night in Buffalo when I was delivering something to New York one time. And wow. Said they moved a girl from Orlando to Lockport, New York. What a teenage guy won't do for a girl. Yeah, I know those stories. Yeah. So anyway, Ed and Paul, they're sneaking through the woods and they see there's a clearing and they're watching. And of course they see this ritual and they're like, ah! So we were getting to the end of the evening and Ed had to go home. And I was like, oh, okay. So Ed's got to go. So we wrapped up after they've seen it, and Ed had failed his sanity roll and had lost a good chunk of sanity, so he was temporarily insane. Paul passed lost like a point or two, so he was okay. He was just kind of shaken by it. So we drop Ed off, go back over to Elliot's, and Paul and Elliot are, come on, Jeff, come on, man, just another hour, just, and that's how it'd always be. Just an hour, just another 30 minutes or so. And then of course, 4 hours later, we're wrapping it up. So I'm like, okay. So, they go and they get spotted by the cultists. So of course, now these cultists are chasing Paul and Ed, and they're running, and Elliot had found a 1/4-ton truck that had like the fabric as far as, think of Indiana Jones, right? Raiders of the Lost Ark. That sort of truck. So Elliot has stolen the truck, and Paul jumps in, Ed climbs into the back of the truck, and they just go hauling ass, right? So of course they're driving, on the these mountain roads in the Catskills, and now they're being chased by the cultists, and they're shooting. So of course Ed's character is temporarily insane, so don't have to worry about his character because now I'm controlling him. And I mean, he's just kind of catatonic in the back. So it's like, the cars pull up next to him and they're trying to force the truck off the road, and just all this stuff going back and forth. So let's see if I remember right. Elliot asks Paul's character, he's take the wheel. So he goes climbing and back to check on Ed. And so he's like climbing across the outside of the truck. And of course, some of the fabric tears, and he's like, oh, just like hanging on, and he's swinging. And so he gets back to the back of the truck, and there's Ed kind of catatonic, and there's these boxes, and these boxes are kind of like rattling, and he goes to look to see what's inside the boxes, and it's nitroglycerin. Yeah, I'm just pulling this stuff right out of my ass. I know. So of course he's like, oh no. And of course bullets are flying. And you know, the cultists are trying to, you know, catch them, to stop them. So Elliot starts throwing nitro out the back of the truck. And Paul gets hit with a bullet. So all of a sudden, the truck starts kind of swerving around. So Elliot's like, what the hell's going on? And Paul's character yells, you got to get up here. I'm hurt bad. So Elliot's goes climbing back outside, and he gets shot. So he's hit. So he climbs back into the cab, and Paul's passed out. So now Elliot's trying to drive the truck and he's trying to force the cultists off the road and stuff like that. And of course, you know, there's like, off the mountainside kind of thing. And all of a sudden they hit some stuff that, you know, big bump and all that. And Paul bangs up against the door of the cab. The door opens up and he starts sliding out. So now Elliot's trying to control the truck. He's shot and he's grabbing onto Paul's character to keep him inside the truck. So anyway, Gleeman RX says, this is like the Road Warrior plus Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is actually something that if you watch the show, you know my best friend Elliot and I have been best friends for 40 plus years. I think we're at like 43 years now. And he remembers this way more vividly than I do. And like I said, if you watch the show, you know that Elliot's memory is terrible. He cannot tell you what he had for lunch yesterday, but he can regale you with these tales of Call of Cthulhu adventures 4 decades ago. All right. So anyway, so we get, they're able to escape. They get away. They get back to New York. And if you follow, if you're familiar, I guess I should say, with Massive Nyarlathotep, then you know it all starts off with a murder that takes place in a hotel. I know. Spoilers, Jeff. So Elliot and Ed and Paul are staying in that hotel. So it was kind of also like a residential hotel. So that's something that's kind of a New York thing. Not real. Well, I guess maybe LA a little bit in Chicago, but even today, there are hotels where portions of the hotel, and we're talking, 15-story buildings. Sections of the hotel are for residents who live in the hotel and have for, years and years, right? So anyway, so they happen to be staying in a room in the hotel. And they're, up a few floors. So that's kind of their base of operations. So this is the next game session. So Ed is there. And of course, he gets to hear about all the excitement that happened when he was, home. Because he had to go home, couldn't spend the night. So I had been sitting there thinking, okay, I can't just let these guys get away with leaving an NPC who was supposed to be their friend. And if I remember correctly, he was supposed to be more Elliot's character's friend than the other two. And Elliot's character, because Elliot was a big fan of Piers Anthony at the time. So for years, Elliot's character was Anthony Piers. So anyway, I had been sitting there and I'm thinking, I can't let these guys get away with just leaving this guy's body in a ditch on the side of the road. What am I going to do? Right? So Ed and Paul and Elliot, their characters are back at the hotel and they're going over their notes and stuff like that. I think, if I remember right, I think they were doing some research on one of the books that they had stolen from the mansion, which all started off this whole thing. There you go. So Gleeman RX is kind of, recapping what had happened to the Mike McCormick character. Death Angel Shadow says there's been studies that show playing in a role-playing game is like an actual event in your memory as compared to reading a book or watching a movie. It's a literal memory. It's interesting. I'm like that with books I've read too. I can remember a lot about books I've read. Yes. Gleeman RX says, never roll a critical failure while trying to climb over a spiked gate. Fence, same difference, right? Okay, so anyway, so they're at the hotel and there's somebody, all of a sudden there's someone pounding on the door. And if I remember right, I think it was Paul's character. Or no, I'm sorry, it was Ed's character. Goes to answer the door. And of course, they're like, who is it? Nobody says anything, right? And then there's pounding again. They're like, okay. So Ed's character goes and he starts opening the door and the door just bursts open, right? So, and he's like, he's slammed by the door and he's knocked to the ground. And it's the zombie of Mike McCormick. I didn't say it was a zombie, but, and he calls out, Anthony. So they're like, what the? So Zombie Mike, as he becomes referred to, becomes this recurring character in the campaign. And so Zombie Mike starts attacking Ed, who's on the ground. I mean, just tearing at him, biting, and Paul's character jumps up, and he was like a mechanic or something like that. And he goes and he like jumps on Zombie Mike to stop him. And Zombie Mike just grabs him, runs across the room, holding Paul's character, hits the window, shatters the window, and just lets him go. Ah! Zombie Mike proceeds to kill all three. Elliot's character, Ed's character, Paul's character. And what I used to do a lot, I'd be like, if a character got killed, I would say, everything goes black. Right. And then, a lot of times I would do that like at the end of a game session, or I would try to end the session at a cliffhanger like that, so then I'd say, all right, everything goes black. So now they'd have to sit there and stew over, so am I unconscious? Am I dead? But it's pretty obvious that their characters have been killed. And I do the old, fade to black. And then they all wake up having had the same exact dream. So they're in this hotel and they've all had this same dream, and all of a sudden there's pounding on the door. So now they're all like scrambling out the window onto the fire escape. And it's supposed to be like January. It's like January 1925, if I remember correctly. So they're all scrambling out the window. And of course, Zombie Mike comes bursting through the door as they make their escape. And of course, he's just keeps, Anthony! So Elliot, Paul, and Ed. See, it's funny because Elliot's nickname was Chip forever. In fact, Elliot didn't really like being called Elliot when we were in high school. It was Chip. And now, of course, as he got older, it's like, no, it's Elliot. I've mentioned this before, but that's why sometimes, like, I'll be telling a story and I kind of stumble over saying Elliot because I'm thinking, oh, yeah, then Chip went and did. Because at that time, we all called him Chip. His family, his friends, everybody. So now we've got Zombie Mike as a recurring character in this campaign. And once again, he becomes a non-player character that unfortunately Paul recently passed away, but he's a non-player character that both Elliot and Ed remember in great detail. And it's like, it was just pulling that out of my ass. So next week, I will wrap up my role-playing game story time with the finale of the Boys versus Zombie Mike. And I'll kind of give you a feel for how I like to run Call of Cthulhu if the group separates. So we'll talk a little bit about that on next week's show. What it'll be is, I mentioned if you tuned in a little late, that because I like to do like a monthly AMA, Ask Me Anything. I'll combine that. I'll combine the AMA with the story time on next Thursday's show, because that'll be the last live show of September. So we will do that. And I'll do like the AMA will only be, maybe I'll do like 3-4 questions. I know there is one question that had been asked when I did the last AMA and I didn't see it. And it was actually a really good question. So I am going to make sure that I address that. And then, of course, if you have a question you want to throw my way, you can do so in chat next Thursday, or send me an email ahead of time to Jeff McAleer at thegaminggang.com. Dan Webb with a super chat says, this story is worth a cup of coffee with something added. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Very nice. Gleeman RX says, that was great. I mean, there's, some other details that I glossed over and stuff like that. But as far as so the funny thing is, kind of take you a little behind the scenes, which I don't do. When I run a role-playing game, especially Call of Cthulhu, I never share what's going on behind the curtain, right? Like a lot of times, a lot of game masters like to kind of recap an adventure once the adventure's over and be like, oh, yeah. So, you guys missed this, or, oh, I really thought that was really interesting how you approached this problem in this way because I thought you were going to do this. I never do that. Never, especially with Call of Cthulhu. It's, if you didn't find out about it, you're not going to find out about it. The only way you're going to find out about it is if it was in a written adventure. You're going to have to read that adventure. So I came up with the zombie mic thing, just spur of the moment. And it was kind of because prior to that, the three investigators had kind of hit like, I don't want to say a brick wall, but something else I don't like to have to do is kind of lead the players. I'm not a big fan of sitting there like, oh, well, these guys aren't getting anywhere. Guess I better just throw something out to them. Throw them a bone, If I have to, I will, but I'm not a big fan of that. Because players can tell when you're doing that. And players feel a real sense of accomplishment when they do what needs to be done. So anyway, I remember they had kind of hit a lull in their investigation. And I thought, well, I got to come up with something, right? And as I mentioned, I had already sat there thinking, I'm not going to let them get away. Well, it wasn't really them. Like I said, it was mainly Paul. Get away with just leaving this guy's body in a ditch. And it's actually a running gag. I mentioned this last week. When they think Mike is dead on the fence, Paul says, I feel sorry for the guy, but he's dead. Come on, let's go. It's like, okay. All righty. So anyway, so I just kind of threw that in there to buy time before, so I could figure out something to get them back on track without really, forcing the issue, showing my hand. And they rolled so poorly in this combat against Zombie Mike, and Zombie Mike's rolls were, if I remember, there were either 2 or 3 critical hits, which that's a big deal in Call of Cthulhu, because you're looking at it's 5% of your skill. Rolling under that is a critical. So there were like a 2 and a 1. I was like, holy cow. So they just rolled so poorly that Zombie Mike was just going to be a stumbling block. Like I said, something to waste some time until I could figure out how to get them back on track. And then it ended up becoming this, like, not half the campaign, probably about 5 or 6 game sessions where if Zombie Mike was implied, Zombie Mike was on their tails. So, Limithron RX says, leaving the impaled friend. That's like in A Christmas Story when they leave Schwartz stuck frozen on the flagpole. Don't leave me, guys. But the bell rang. Dan Webb says the off-the-cuff creation of Zombie Mike was a great idea. And the thing was, I never explained it. So they had no idea. They had no idea. It was, just Zombie Mike was seeking his revenge. That was it. All right, so that is another edition of Role-Playing Game Story Time. And that is it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings, 7 p.m. Central, right here on YouTube. Also let you know when I share other videos, such as today's review of Delta Green, God's Teeth from Arc Dream Publishing. Yes, more spooky September. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. If you watched live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chats, a bigger thank you, because not only are you keeping me company, you also keep each other company as I'm babbling on and on and on. Of course, I know a lot of you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Really do appreciate all of you taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the channel. I will be back on Tuesday. Our topic will be bringing the Old West to life at your game table. Should be pretty interesting. Should be pretty cool. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great weekend. And of course, as I always point out, appreciate you watching the videos. And of course, once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. And until I see you next time, certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.